Welcome back, everybody, to Gringos Liberados. We did it, boys. We did it. We killed them off. We destroyed LTA North in one fell swoop. Oh my word. My name is Trajan. I'm joined by AC and 4Y4 for this victory lap of an episode, which is what this is going to be. So just to let you all know how insufferable this episode is going to be, like, we're going to have to talk about 100 Thieves in Pain, but then we're also going to talk about Red and Shopify, and that's going to be really annoying for all of you. So, welcome, gents. How are we doing this week? AC, nice to have you back on as well.
Thank you. Thank you for having me again. Listen, I'm just here as an instigator, okay? Yep. As a fellow Portuguese speaker of the Portuguese language, I am just here to instigate and to absolutely flame NA for dropping a seed to what was called unnecessary and pointless draft of games. So, thank you for having me.
Very much were an instigator the last time as well for the loud cause, and now we've just
loud worked.
Yes, like to be honest, we were having Discord as soon as that 100 Thieves Pain match ended 4x4. We were having loud would have won this discourse. So the instigators are out in force for loud still.
They would have put up a way better fight. That's for damn sure. I mean, I wanted to start there. Just get this out of the way.
Let's get this out of the way.
Things Pain series. Let's just get that over with.
Yeah. So 3-0, 100 Thieves. Game 2 was a generational CBLOL throw by Pain. Having had a much better second game. Looked, they were going to give us a real one there, but games 1 and 3 were ones to forget. I did not have much fun in those games. And it just, I think the problems that RMC and the rest of the Pain's HAs were mentioning certainly seemed quite apparent. Roamer did not have a lot of fun. I think that for me as well, Karaoke continues to really not look like himself outside of the Sao Paulo arena. And there are now the monthly, quarterly calls for heads from Pain Gaming players. So, AC, do you feel like we need to be calling for heads yet? Because obviously they always will, but do you think it's justified this time around?
I don't know, man. Listen, the last few weeks of LTA South have been a complete mess because you saw teams that weren't doing too great on the beginning of the split start to rise to fame and just barely made it out of these qualification matches for the regional championship. And you saw teams that were supposed to be on top just completely fumble midway through the split. So there was a massive shift in what teams were dominant at what times, i.e. Furia, for example, who were supposed to be one of the top teams coming into Split 3, and all of a sudden, where are they?
Ones.
Where is Furia?
They were the chosen
They're nowhere
ones.
to be found.
Yeah, they disappeared so fast. So we'll see how they look, I guess, at the start of next year, but they now have a long old off season to consider their choices of 8 block scrims and whether that needs to continue or if they can get used to that over 5 months, who knows. But for Pain, no one thought they looked good going into this match, right? They crashed out in their last batches of playoffs. They got 3-1 by VKS and then 3-0'd by Red, having beaten them previously in the bracket, so they were not on form. And the struggles of Wiser, Roamer, Karaoke all continued. Curry, I dare say, looked a bit better because he didn't have the best end to playoffs, but him and Titan were cooking a little bit. Titan is still trying to carry every single game and sometimes looks like he can, but man, I don't think anyone thought this was going to go differently. So
I don't know, man.
I thought this might have gone a little differently. I don't know, man. To me, I mean, this feels like the end of an era. I mean, I think Pain's offseason is going to be fascinating. You're saying, are we calling for heads? Something has to change. I think Shiro is gone.
Really?
I think the coaching change will be had. I think just, if nothing else, because the fan pressure is just immense on him. The fans are extremely upset at him.
Mm-hmm.
Now, where the rest of the roster goes is fascinating, right? Because Karaoke, it almost feels like he'll never go. But again, is the outside pressure simply too much? And I think the most important question, honestly, that you're asking is, if we can agree that Titan is your most important / consistent member, will he want to stick around? Because he's getting towards the twilight of his career, not with how he's playing on the Rift, but he's been doing this since 2018, right? He's not a spring chicken anymore. He wants to win. He's extremely competitive. How much stomach does he have for a maybe not even a rebuilding project, because I don't think Pain have the stomach to go to a full rebuild. They go from strength to strength.
Mm-hmm.
Will Titan have the stomach for a reformulation, wanting to, ride out the growing pains of whatever new roster comes in?
Oh man, but that's a major issue with Pain itself. I know that there's been some internal issues with the roster of Pain and the staff, how these last few weeks have been going as well internally. They've had some turmoil, and I guess that reflects in what happens inside the Rift. You should leave those things at the door, but unfortunately, it was just too chaotic of an end of the split for it to really be separated from, separate the art from the artist in this case. And at the end of the day, Pain, do they have to go through a restructure? You could obviously argue that the core of the team and the core players could stick together and join a different project, but at the end of the day, Pain as an entity will have to restructure itself for next year.
Look,
right?
I think it's happened quite quickly, which is why it's kind of snuck up on me here, that Pain is the one that needs to move on. Even Red moved on this year. Even Red were like, okay, let's shelve Aegis Grevthar finally after beating that dead horse into the ground. Loud moved on, and they're now looking better than ever. Red moved on, and they're one series away from qualifying to Worlds in the second spot. And it felt like Pain, while they were super consistent and locked down for that kind of Loud Dynasty era, and they got Titan and they finally overcame it, I guess it wasn't as obvious that they in fact have not changed much for a long time, and now everyone else has, and Pain and the Furia Rise just kind of snuck in through that whole deal, and now Pain are the ones that are kind of getting left behind a little bit, and it didn't really strike me until I started thinking about this like today, that like Pain actually haven't done anything major apart from the Titan move for a long time. And if to the second part, to the point of, well, how much patience does Titan have for this, as 404 said? Well, you know who needs to do bot lane? 404. You know who needs a bot lane?
Who's that?
Loud. Loud can do bot lane. Roots out the door. He's on the plane.
Roots on.
Redbird. I don't think Titan wants to play with Redbird. I'm gonna keep it a stack. Titan and Curry.
I think Titan would sooner retire.
Then go to Loud.
Not then go to Loud, then play with
Redbird.
Like,
okay, right.
I think he might sooner go to goddamn Dignitas before he
play Redbird.
Plays with Redbird.
But
because at least he'll get paid more.
Griffin and Titan and Curry and
that would go so hard.
Like, feels like it would be kind of hard.
Love that. But here's the other kind of crazy thing. I mean, how certain are we that Tatu sticks around with Furia? Because even though he signed a contract.
Mm-hmm.
Tatu did tweet, Furia are allowing me to explore other options.
Yeah.
So it's like restricted free agency, sort of.
Yeah.
He can go out and
Furia as
test
a
the waters.
Furia as a squad also are having their issues as well. And I guess internally after this last playoff run, they absolutely crumbled because they went from being the top team in LTA South to being out of the international competitions at all, right? Yeah. They went back-to-back international competitions to just not being anywhere.
Yeah, bombed out at 5th and 6th without a single game in playoffs. And it would be really silly if Pain cooked Tatu in the academy system and then loaned him to Furia for like 2 splits, finally sold the contract for the 3rd split, and then he just leaves and comes back to Pain 1 split later. That would be the silliest thing to happen, and Pain would then laugh their way all the way to the bank for this. But like I don't think there's anyone who, given how Tatu performed this year, can say, well, Pain probably should have just promoted him, eh? They probably should have just promoted him at the start of the year when he was like the hottest new prospect but was undervalued, and then they would have Tatu already, and they'd be locked because Tatu was going to be one of the best junglers for years. He just is. And they let that one go for no apparent reason, I guess, like because they're still we're karaoke, and now again when we're having the karaoke needs to go discourse, as we do every single year it seems, they don't have Tatu in the back pocket. They're gonna have to buy him back as opposed to just promoting him up. So I don't know, man. It seems like they could have had a way out, and they did let go of that way out just before they really looked like they needed it. So
yeah, and that's the other thing is like Weiser is now a Brazilian resident. I don't know what his Korean military service situation is, right? He's not a Brazilian citizen, I don't think, unless something's very new. Like just as Weiser the person, not the League of Legends player.
Yeah.
Right. But it almost feels like Pain, on the one hand, it feels like Pain is in sort of like not contract jail, but like, like you've got, assuming Tatu isn't willing to take like a hometown discount to come to Pain, right? If you want to get Tatu for his actual market value, you're gonna have to pay out the nose. And if it was any other team but Pain, I'd be worried about that. But Pain seem to have money, just coming out of their pores, so they'll spend what needs to be spent to put out a winning product. But now, why do you make a change with Weiser? Because I think that's something we haven't talked about. Is because he's coming off an absolute clanger of a split in playoffs. He has been awful the last few weeks. He has been just straight up bad, and he's done all this time to be able to become a Brazilian resident. Where does he go, right? Maybe he goes to Americas, because if he's a Brazilian resident, then he takes up an America's spot, right? So it doesn't count as an import for North America. I could see that. But then who do you bring into the top lane? I think Pain is in like simultaneously the most interesting and uninteresting position, because again, I think if it was any other team but Pain, it would be this fascinating Rubik's Cube to try to solve and fit all the pieces together. But because it's Pain, that they're just going to kind of wiggle their way out of this, because they are Pain and they will give the contracts necessary. Yeah, no, it's like Donald Trump over here. It's like I don't know how he's going to keep getting away with this one, and then he gets away with it.
Nevertheless,
I don't know. I think this format is going to show up a lot of flaws that are happening within the teams of LTA South. A lot of teams are going to be rising up to the challenge, i.e. Vivo Keystars, out of the blue, decided to start winning everything nonstop.
Yep.
I'm looking forward to see how next year they're going to crash and burn, because I feel like that's the rhythm that... Yeah. I know, that's the rhythm of LTA South teams. It's like they have a wonderful year, or at least a wonderful split. Then the next split comes around, they barely change the roster, and they just crash and burn.
Yeah. It's maybe what we're hoping for is that because of the manner that VKS has constructed this success over 2 years, a year and a half, I guess, that should hopefully make it more resilient, due to the manner at which it was built, as opposed to like this offseason, we managed to snag the piece that happened to solve all of our roster issues semi by accident, and then we won the split. Now that's kind of what we thought Furia was going to be like, because they had a similar story and they managed to shoot themselves in the foot pretty heavily. So, I won't commit to that super hard, but I guess we will just have to see, right? From Split 1 VKS to Split 2 to Split 3, they've looked like different teams every single time. And, even notwithstanding Mirror, even the players that have been there the whole year. So it's a tricky one, man. And with LTA South, you literally never know who's going to show up every split, every day. It seems like there's so much variety there. But for Pain, as we kind of wrap up here, I think a lot of the people as well are calling for the name of Roamer, for the head of Roamer, because he's been here the most recently. He's not really had a single split where he's really been what Pain and Pain fans wanted him to be. And at the end of the year, it was certainly not. It was certainly bad. Certainly did not peak at the end of the year. It just doesn't really seem like this is going anywhere. And that is, I guess,
he's
just
a young
feeds
player.
it feeds into this whole surrounding Pain narrative that this roster has come to an end, and Roma's just the last one in and might end up being the first one out. But I don't think necessarily... It was kind of the same with Mir, I suppose, who came in for Furia at one point. It just kind of didn't work. Like, there's good moments, there's talented plays, there's clearly value there, but it just didn't work, and they dumped Mir pretty quickly. Who's to say whether that was the right thing to do or not? And now Roamer might get the same treatment. So, woof.
That's weird. I mean, I like to have, sometimes rosters just don't click immediately. Sometimes you do need to make some adjustments, but to just sack a player right off the bat, even a young player, a young promising player, because Roamer, even though he didn't perform according to expectations, he still had some really good games. We can't forget, they still made it to playoffs with him, right? They still managed to pull through on a top 3 seed for the LTA regional championship.
Yeah, they 3-1 Red the first time. Like
exactly. I mean, that is something that they can't look at it and say, well, even though we did good up until here, we don't want to keep investing in the talent because we failed ultimately in our goals. Dude, it's an international stage.
Mm-hmm.
All the leagues that play in a bubble and don't have any international interaction are doomed to follow in their footsteps, right?
Mm. Maybe that does point back to the coaching change suggestion then. If it's just keep them and just maybe it needs to be a Shiro out and someone else in, who knows? But it does feel like Shiro is very much part of the furniture in Pain, which that would be a very significant change. I think he's now the longest standing, maybe him and Karaoke. I don't know who came first, but Wiser actually potentially even like that they've been there for years and years and.
Yeah, I think Karaoke has been the longest serving. So I think even Karaoke was there 2020, maybe even 2019, because Karaoke was there in 2021 when they went with Robo and Tinones.
That's crazy.
Robo and Tinones were on Pain.
That is a hell of a tenure.
He was at that MSI where they were a respawn inhibitor away from beating Mad Lions in the MSI group stage.
Yeah. That was a painful one.
But which feels like 10,000 years ago.
Yeah.
Okay. Actually, I'm looking through the stats. Karaoke has been with the squad since 2020, May 2020.
Yeah,
he's the oldest member of the team so far.
Yeah, that sounds about right.
Currently.
So, we'll see if he still is come 2026, or if he'll be cut adrift. We shall see.
Yeah.
Okay, that's Pain 100 Thieves. 100 Thieves just kind of, like I say, swept him aside. There was one game that Pain definitely should have won, and probably should have just lost 3-1 instead of 3-0. But there you are. So, next on the docket, it's Red SR. Next day, Red SR 3-2 Red Canids took us all the way to Game 5.
And this could have been a 4-1. There were games that Red lost that they should have won. One, if not both of them, I think one of them for sure. I was there in person in the arena for this one. That was an absolute blast to be at. What a historic, beautiful occasion to witness. I will say, it was gut-wrenching to do it at the expense of our sweet baby Prince Angel Boy sales.
So yes.
That hurt.
Yeah.
That hurt. When the roster with the one Brazilian on it is the first one to lose to Brazil ever. Mm-hmm. And look, I mean, and I did a little video with David Shynock. He's a big kind of like North American 100 Thieves person. And I gave my predictions. I said, look, the 100 Thieves Pain series, I think 100 Thieves will win, but whether or not it's a close series, it'll depend on what version of Pain shows up. Because I just don't see 100 Thieves regressing back to what they were at the beginning of the split. I could see them regressing back to like 70% of what they were, or like maybe right after they made the Dokla change, because they weren't perfect. They didn't get on this heater like immediately, right? It took them a couple games, a couple series. So I can see them progressing back to that, but it is going to be entirely dependent on which version of Pain shows up. Because if we get this version of Pain, it'll be a 3-0. But what I did say was, look, I think, and this is not a hot take, obviously, but like Summoner's Rift, hello, Shopify Rebellion is an extremely flawed team. And if you are looking at, obviously, what's the biggest, sore spot for SR, it's Palafox. What is the biggest X factor of all 10 players on this team, on this Rift? It is Kaze. Kaze could just take him to school. And that is what happened at certain points. It was unbelievable to watch. I will say, I do think B-Voy and Seos acquitted themselves pretty well, all things considered. I do think there is some bias here. Contracts had some absolute clangers. He had some rough ones. Fudge had a decent game here and there. B-Voy set a record, a North American all-time record for DPM in a single game on that Ezreal performance.
It was
1,800 DPM.
Oh, that's a lot.
Yeah, it was like 1,860 or something crazy.
DPM. That is an all-time North American record. Now, some of that was just farming off the Cho'Gath, but still, dude, Cho'Gath's been in the game as long as the game's been around.
Exactly.
A lot of it was like almost first blooding at level 2. Actually, did first blood at level 2 or 3, I think. Like he was.
No, but
it was crazy.
The thing is, when you're at level 1. Yeah, but when you're at level 1 and 2, you're dealing max 500 damage. That's a lot of damage to get 1,800 DPM.
Yeah,
I mean, what was the total amount of damage that he dealt on the whole game? How long was the game?
It was a 40-minute game. So
a 40-minute game. Okay, so he was just smacking Cho'Gath.
Nutty numbers.
Back of the napkin math here. 40 times 1,800 is 72,000 damage.
Yeah,
72,000 damage in a 40-minute. That is a lot. No, dude, because like the thing is, when you think of Ezreal, I don't think you think that he's a massive DPM champion, right? Because he pokes you.
You have to hit your shots.
Exactly. You have to hit your shots, but you don't have the
variance
consistent auto attacking with the attack speed and the crit, right? And the armor penetration that a regular ADC has. Ezreal at the end of the day is a spell slinger on the same level that a Corki is a spell slinger. Yeah. And having him have that amount of DPM, that is impressive.
And in lane, he's more like a burst machine than a DPS machine.
Yeah,
he's like a level. He's a level 2, level 3 burst mage in lane.
Yeah,
like.
if you land the W and can proc the W and hit all your spells, that's half your health bar gone. But that's a big if.
And that's what he did. Like that's exactly multiple times. But so that was a generational B-Boy game. Just to remind everybody, what we lost at some point.
Sure.
But never forget. It was, I think you could see on Sales's face that, like, because they did interviews with him beforehand, who were like, how do you feel about being the one to play against Red? And he's like, I want to win, I want to go to Worlds, but like, it's cool that like my Brazil, if we lose, then like, it's Brazil, isn't it? So like, it's kind of fine. Like he was definitely not as devastated as he could have been. No. But I think that's just because he loves the region, right? And he represented the region at international multiple times. He is ultimately a product of the scene and still feels that connection, which is cool. He's not been completely LTA Northified.
And that's another kind of wrinkle is, look, I, this is not me reporting anything. I don't even know what Shopify will do, because I think they are in a very interesting position this offseason as well. Does Seos come back to Brazil? Maybe.
Ooh. We probably could do with a good support in a couple of teams.
Because and I think Titan is going to drag Curry kicking and streaming with him wherever he goes. But if that doesn't work out, a Titan Seos bottom lane?
Yeah, we never had that. It.
God, that would go so hard. It almost goes too hard to where I'm thinking of it almost like a super team where it's like, well, there's a reason this doesn't work out. But anyway, that's neither here nor there. Let's talk a little bit about Red, because holy shit. I mean, that was awesome. Everyone firing on all cylinders, even like, God bless FNB, because I was given kind of the lore to like the LTA North people I was there with, and I got to translate some of the interviews they did for like some content pieces afterwards for Red. And like, I was like Red, like, and even FNB said this, right, in some of his interviews, right? Because they're asking like, what was your journey, blah, blah, blah. And he was like, actually, I'm going to cut that out because that video hasn't been released yet. So I'm not sure I'm allowed to talk about that.
Leaks.
So I'm gonna cut that. I mean, it was nothing crazy. Just I don't think like here, and we'll start with the cut here. FNB has had a lot of expectations placed on his shoulders since he came into the league at a very young age. Since like that Vorax series when it was FNB and the Super Minions, and they lost to a clearly better paid gaming team in 2021 Split 1. FNB has always been, right? I mean, we make the jokes about failed nationally in Brazil or whatever, right? But like he has tried to hit those highs so many times, and he's such a beloved figure in the scene. He went to Super Furia. That didn't work. And so I want Red to get there because I want FNB to get there so we can finally put this narrative to bed. But every time he comes to playoffs, it's either one of two things. It's either FNB shows up and the rest of his team doesn't, or the rest of his team shows up and FNB just falls on his face.
Yeah,
it's you never get both at the same time. And here we got both at the same time. He was awesome. Even in game 1 that they lost on, and he was on Rumble.
Yeah, he
was frying for the first 20 minutes of that game. And then it just, whatever, it didn't work out. But you got everybody firing on all cylinders. You got Kaze doing Kaze things. Doom was low-key the MVP of that series. He was awesome. Because how often have you seen, even like, and we talked about, the way we talk about Red, I mean, I'll say my opinion, I almost feel like Doom is like the anonymous character. He's almost like, to me, he almost feels like the weak link because he's never like a superstar. He had like the one Neferi game when he kind of showed up. But otherwise, he just kind of shows up and does his job. There was an interview that Talkers gave about like how easy it is to work, like what it's like to work with Doom. And he's like, Doom is the best player on earth to coach because he just does what you tell him. Yeah. Like he'll be in a game. They'll review the VOD afterwards. He'll say, "Hey, Doom, you did that wrong. Don't do that shit again next game." Doom says, "Okay," and then he fixes the mistake the next game. Yeah, so hey, Doom, we had you play this style of champion this time. We need you to play Sejuani next game. We need you to play it like this. He says, okay, and then he does exactly what you want him to do. Yeah. That is the perfect jungler. You built in a lab, right? Because how often have you seen, even just on champions in general, this isn't like a Doom-specific criticism, but on champions like the Vi, like the Xin Zhao, where it's, okay, you have 100% KP, you're 2-0-2, right? You got 4 kills early, you got yourself some grubs and a dragon, and then how do you transition that lead? Because you have legitimate star carries at your 3 other positions. You have guys that all can take over the game on their day, but it is sneaky difficult to transition that power. If you are Doom early on, you're the first one to the Sundered Sky. You get that Steric second, and you become a bit of a demon in the team fights, in the skirmishes around the objectives that get the rest of the team fed. He did that masterfully.
Yeah, Doom was like we cottoned onto it by the time we ran the tier list and put him just below that like elite group of junglers, which is Tattoo, Desamus, and Karaoke, and given like this performance as well, it's kind of the same when we saw Tatu first against like other better teams, and I was very worried for Doom because I think that like he always still felt like a bit of a journeyman in my head, but this is like he's rising to the level of his competition every time the stakes get higher. He's getting better, and as Tucker said, he improves very quickly and immediately without needing to like fight to prove to him that he should play better, kind of thing. That sometimes with pros you have to. And you know, the Brazilian Twitter started calling the Silent Hokage, which just tickles me, which is just it's a really funny name. Like, I love that for him. So, and it's funny, you know, we were talking about how like if he goes to Worlds, then like the Chinese fans are gonna have a field day with Bowl. They're gonna have a field day with Doom as well if he gets there. So it's big, man. It's big for that jungler. Just kind of quietly, constantly improved very quickly once he was actually in a team that could elevate him while they elevate themselves.
Yeah, no, he's a star, man. I mean, this series against 100 Thieves is going to be really interesting. I mean, just to kind of rip the Band-Aid off, if you were to ask me, you know, Nerf gun to my head, I think 100 Thieves takes it. But this, because I do think 100 Thieves are just the better team. And again, like, if they hit whatever ceiling, whatever Dokla snuck into the Wheaties that they are eating every morning at the Cash App compound, if they keep eating that, I especially with FlyQuest in their current guys, I mean, 100 Thieves could, they won't, but they could win the whole thing, because at their ceiling, that mid jungle
is a bit bonkers.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah.
River and Quid are unbelievable.
Yeah, like so much of the success for Red against Shopify came through Kaze absolutely gapping Palafox in large swathes of the series. And as you said, the fact that Contracts did not have the best day. Contracts is a very weird player to me, and how good and how bad he can look in like moment to moment. But 100 Thieves isn't. They're like the opposite of that. They pivot around this mid jungle that is just so skilled and so talented. And yes, River can sometimes be a little volatile, but way less than Contracts. Flips heads way more times. And we saw what happens when Kaze Doom went up against Miryu Desamus in VKS, and Miryu was the one guy that Kaze couldn't put hands on in the whole region, and it looked so different when Kaze can't put hands on the enemy mid laner. And Quid's really good, so I don't know if this is possible. AC, I don't know if you feel like,
listen, if we're talking about mid jungle duos, No. Do I feel like wrecking? And listen, anytime I'm allowed to wreck on NA, I'm always on a good day. Listen, if we're talking about mid jungle duos, and I think it's a really important role, but we have to talk about the top lane as well, because top lanes in the current patches have been gaining a lot of popularity, especially when we're talking about the shift from tankier playstyles. When you're kind of you still want to see the Scions, you still want to see the Mundos, you still want to see the Cho'Gaths, but we've been having a massive shift towards more carry-oriented top laners in the shape of Gwens, in the shape of Aatroxes, things that can really shift the tide of a fight. Now, when we're talking about mid-jungle duos, we also have to include the top lane, because the weak side becomes the bot lane, right? You want to neglect a little bit the bot lane, have them at their own devices, have them on the 2v2s, because if we're talking about high-priority junglers in the shape of a Vi, of a Xin Zhao, going 3v2 might not always be a good math. So top lane comes into play, and I do feel like FNB, despite all of his flaws, is still able to absolutely demolish Dokla in the top side, especially when you put Doom in the mix. And if we're throwing down Kaze as well in the equation here, Kaze, I don't think that Quid is as mobile of a mid laner as Kaze is in the direct confrontation, especially when Doom opens up so many avenues for Kaze to be free to roam around. Top lane is going to be important. I think at FNB is still a level ahead of Dokla.
Yeah, you already mentioned it 4x4 as well. FNB absolutely stormed against SR. He has not looked out of step at all with all of the top laners he played against. Fudge was like one of, if not the best, Shopify Rebellion player throughout the split. He was right back in conversation for top laners, and FNB looked very comfortable against him. He completely dumped out Robo. He dealt very easily with Wiser. He did not deal 100% with Bowl. I will say, but that's because Bol's the GOAT. So Bol's in a
Right,
level
yeah,
level.
yeah.
You know,
Bull picked up the gold star and the Super Mario Gold Star.
yeah,
It hasn't
and
worn off
it's
quite yet.
no, and Gatgos is gonna get absolutely bulldozed by Bol as well. I trust. In that match against
I
Fly.
hope he blue shells the shit out of him.
It would be
God.
so funny. Please let it happen. But FNB has looked really, really, really solid. And yes, as you say, the carries are very, very comfortable, very carryable. Like they can carry entire games. And for no matter how big Dokes is, I do think FNB is bigger. So
he can get at him for sure. That's definitely a point that you can.
Yeah. So
exploit.
even if mid lane can't necessarily be as much of a pressure point for Red to play through, top might be the answer instead. Top might be the lane they can play through.
And if we look at what the map presents you in terms of what the top lane or the top lane objectives really show you, you get the Grubs, you get the Herald, and you get the Baron. The Baron might be the least important of these three, especially when you're talking about the early mid game, because Baron is only going to be relevant later on in the game. So if you're prioritizing Grubs and Herald, if you're playing a snowball composition that can really, really start pressuring your opponent and really garner advantages on the side lanes and open up the map, if you have decent side laners, which we've seen FNB consistently play Yorick, okay, this is a huge argument to make in favor of top lane priority. You collect the Grubs, you collect the Herald, you throw the Yorick on the side lane, and FNB is going to have a field day with 100 Thieves.
Yeah, I'm so glad that FNB can play Yorick and is using it properly, because we've had a lot of top laners try to play Yorick, and it's such a unique way of understanding the game, in that it's like,
it is,
because a lot of top laners know how to play Jax and then split push with Jax, right? But it feels like Yorick
it's not the same.
It's not the same, and Yorick has a different pattern of play, and it's such a different mechanical champion to try and execute. And you're still doing 1v2s, and you can do tower pushes, but it's just so unique in that way it's piloted, and it's so clear. So many top laners just don't know what to do with it. But FNB is so good. This champion is so simple, at a glance. It's literally just Spade, what small skill shot, and then a ring, and it's not even you can't time it, you can't do ward jumps. There's none of these utility tools.
None of this woke nonsense.
None of this woke nonsense, right? But it seems like the abilities are simple on the surface, but you can do so much with this. So I love how much FNB does with it, and even if it's in team fights, even if it's actively choosing to fight and in the split push as well. So FNB is definitely could be a difference maker in this 100 Thieves series for sure. The one lane we haven't talked about yet is the bot lane, that bot lane matchup.
Yeah.
And for Rebello and Frosty, I do feel like I am underestimating them still, even though I have less and less reason to as every series goes by. Frosty, I'm very confident in, and Rebello is kind of like Doom, I guess, in that he is stepping up to whatever level is presented in front of him a little bit more, and still does great damage, does great numbers, plays pretty smart in these fights. Still doesn't feel like the most dominant 2v2 player, which is maybe why I, as a watcher of Brazilian and now South American League, feel slightly less half a point of shine on him compared to others, just because I'm so used to seeing the dominant 2v2 play of our bot laners. But he's so good and valuable after that I think I'm probably still underselling him a bit.
No, I mean, if we're talking about bot laners, like we said, red cannons have a tendency to go weak side bot lane. That's why you see more times than not Rebello play snowball-y or snowball-oriented champions as opposed to hyper carries, because you have very big hyper carries in League of Legends right now. Ashe is super viable as a hyper carry as of late. I don't... World's patch, let me think about it. Yeah, well, let's call it that, sure. But then you have Corki, you have what are the other? You have Kaisa, but the champions that Rebello usually flies towards are Misfortunes. You have the Varus, you have the Lucian, you have the Senna, which in of herself is a hyper carry, but is a very independent carry when it comes to that. It's not an ADC that really requires a lot of attention, and she can really play on her own most of the time. So these snowball-oriented champions allow your support to really roam and back up your jungler when you're paying attention to the top half of the Summoner's Rift, which is what, at the end of the day, red cannons are looking for.
Yeah, Rebello's misfortune in the last game was so good. That was the one time I think where the bot lane really crushed for Red. They did so well. Completely shut out Yunara Braum because there were questions about, oh, we're giving the Yunara. This was nerfed or not hotfix buffed Yunara, so there were questions as to why B-Boy is picking it, why SR is game 5ing it.
Yeah, you wonder if someone didn't read the patch
someone
notes. Like,
did
when
not
that
check.
went up on the screen, I had to do a double take. I couldn't believe I saw that.
Yeah, because then the casters were like in the studio were like, bro, it's not buffed, because they're watching the LTA North team, and Kobe's like screaming.
They were like stroking out and trying so hard to be professional.
Kobe was losing it. But then Rebello completely bodies it regardless on the MF, which was so good to see. But I'm glad you mentioned the Ashe as well, AC, because like the other lane would look really good for them was the Ashe Seraphine, and I was like so sus on that draft all the way until the Seraphine, because then they had like, I was like, where's your damage, bro? This is like we're gonna pick everybody and we're not gonna kill anyone. And then they're hovering Renata, and I was like, no, you're not gonna kill anybody. And then they swatched the Seraphine last second, and I was like, okay, that's fine. All right, I'll take that. That's okay. That's like salvageable at this point. And like
you got healing and shielding, you've got moderate
and
damage.
it has moderate damage. It's got enough damage. It's not like a Lulu, it's not like a Renata. It's got more oomph behind it that was enough to
it's got utility as well.
Exactly.
What you're lacking in most hyper carries, what you lack is a lot of utility. Granted, Sivir is an absolute exception to this rule with her ultimate, but other than Sivir, most hyper carries play for themselves, right? They have utility for themselves. Ashe is one of the few champions that can pump out so much damage, apply constant slows, and every 30 seconds she has a massive arrow that stuns you for 3 business days. And I think that's really like, Ashe goes under the radar a lot of times, and I'm glad to see her start to rise in popularity. She got a little bit buffed in her most recent patches, which I don't think will affect her performance in the Worlds way too much. It's just going to remind people that Ashe is a champion, and she is something to be feared. I've seen more recently, actually, before the most recent patch, I've been seeing a lot of Ashes starting to show up as you allow hyper carries in the top lane and the mid lane to really start to shine. Ashe becomes a little bit of an independent source here, and you're allowing your jungler to actually build a little bit more damage as well. So you have damage sources across the board. You're not relying on the AD carry, and you have a point of utility that most people wouldn't expect it to come from there and wouldn't have answers for.
Yeah, and I think that in that game, the killer instinct of Red was so well directed by a comp that has Ashe Arrow, Sejuani ult, Talia, and Seismic Shove and Seraphine ult that is like, you just walk up to somebody and you have to all press your buttons on the same target. It's like almost non-negotiable because it's just like the obvious right thing to do every time. No one's like confused. No one's like splitting fights and fighting their own battle on 2 different fronts. It's the comp demands that you channel in one direction, and they were constantly playmaking, constantly pick making.
That was the game they had Gnar with top, right?
Yes, that was the game where they had Gnar top, who was just chilling, just vibing out. FNB was vibing out into Aatrox with like a moderate lane lead because he's melee into ranged. And then the rest of the team was just kill shot.
It's exactly what you said, right? No one tried to get too cute with anything, right? Yeah. Like you said, like it is a moderately difficult comp to execute in that, like you said, everything has to go right? And if you have agency, if you have first move with those comps, it just everyone press R, you go forward, blah blah blah. But watching FNB just payphone his way through that lane was so satisfying.
Yeah,
and because we haven't seen him on Gnar in like a while, and he's like, okay, like and Gnar he could be so boomer bust, right? Because we've seen not only for FNB, but we've seen a lot of Brazilian top laners have Gnar games where you are just useless.
They cannot manage.
If you don't time your Gnars and you don't time your ultimates right, like okay, you could you can slam your lane all you want because, like you said, it's normally a range versus melee matchup.
Yeah.
And then you get to those mid games and late games, and you just get kited out, and you're like, "Oh no, I'm a traffic cone. Have fun, 45."
It's essentially just like, oh, we tried to engage and we missed it, so the Narbar times out, and now we don't know what we're doing because we all showed up for this Elder Dragon, and
now everyone just pisses down their legs, and you all die,
and they just die. Yeah. So like, but it does have like a lot of abilities to layer, but each ability helps you layer the next one. Once you hit the first one, everyone gets easy to hit after that, and they're all non-committal. You don't have to sacrifice your life or your safety to do any of it. It's so good. You just press R, and if one hits, then the next guy does, the next guy does, the next guy does. And if it misses, you just go, well, yeah, see you in 30 seconds, as you say. Like,
and just to close out the point on that talking point, I mean, that's the problem with playing teams with hyper carries, and I know that's kind of what teams are more oriented towards, but once you're playing a hyper carry, you just have a target on your back. And if you go down, that's pretty much the exclusive source of damage that your team has, right? When you're talking about a Sivir, sure, you might spell shield one ability, but hey, you spell shield the Ash Arrow. What about the Glacial Prison from Sejuani, huh? What about the Talia Wall? You have to flash over that now, and then you have a Gnar jump on you and just smash you up against the Talia Wall that you try to avoid so much. So that's the problem of having hyper carry comps against snowball comps that don't have a dedicated specific carry. When things just work and everybody has a job to do, like Red Canids did, it works really, really well. And I feel like that's been the case for the series against Shopify Rebellion.
Yeah, I think so. I think that when Red had a draft that kind of gave them jobs that they know how to do, the Game 4 didn't look great because it just did, and Kaze said this in the post-series interview as well, it just didn't feel like didn't suit them, right? The comp didn't suit them. It wasn't their bread and butter, and it looked like it. And they actually did okay in that game. It was a winnable game still because they were the better team on the day, I would wager. But they did not look super comfortable. Only really FMB on the Cho'Gath because he's just a great Cho'Gath. But like that's kind of it. The Frosty Pike was a bit spicy, and didn't end up panning out. But it was just kind of a funny game. They weren't all able to like do their jobs properly because they're just not as comfortable with them. And I think the last thing before we talk about VKS and Fly is that when those Ash Arrows missed in Game 3, the rest of the team did not then full send anyway. They didn't just go, well, we have to go because we've decided we're going now. Like, you can see teams that have go buttons, and if it doesn't all mesh together, they just go anyway, and then they do a half-hearted engage that doesn't work, and they throw a lead or whatever. But Red were able to restrain themselves until they got the right setup, which is what you have to be able to do. Sometimes in LTA South, you don't get that level of like, okay, it's not perfect, and we don't have to do anything now. We could just do nothing. That's fine. That's a winning option, is to do nothing because we didn't get the perfect setup. So I think that was really cool. Anyway, right, FLY-VKS. Is that the first match, or is it Thieves first?
That's the first one.
It is the first
Sunday
one.
I think it is.
Yeah. Saturday, FLY-VKS. So Gatgos is, unless we hear something in the next 2 days, Gatgos is going to be top laning because Bwipo is still suspended. So Bowler's going to have a much easier ride. Gatgos, certainly a mechanical player, but FlyQuest do look obviously diminished strategically without Bwipo, I would wager. And draft as well, they have less options because Bwipo is one of these super versatile pocket pick havers, and FlyQuest are able to play with them and use those specialty picks. So the top lane is going to be a lot less cunning, a lot less a lot easier to engage with, I think, with Gatgos. And then we come to just the rest of the map for VKS. Now, we've talked about mid jungles a bit already and how that affected Red, how Red maybe clashes into 100 Thieves. But for the mid jungle for VKS into Fly, we have Quad and Inspired. We have excellent mid laner and best Western player. And then we have best mid laner in LTA South and the human potential machine Desamis, who seems to maybe have finally elevated to that top bit. So 404, what are we thinking about this mid jungle matchup for Cade?
Dude, it's such a shame because, like, I mean, I almost wish Inspired was the one that said something off color about women instead, because I think that gives Cade.
It's a bigger advantage for us.
100%. Like it's like you said, he's the best player in the West. I've seen that. We've watched this guy do in both of our regions, do what he's done for too long with too many teams that play too many different styles, that have too many different types of laners too consistently.
Yeah.
For me to think that this is still not a FlyQuest win, not a walkover. And look, because like that is the one thing you do take away the Bwipo oopsies of it all. Inspire doesn't really have any oopsies, right? And again, it's not like it's because it's a jungle matchup. It's not like it's Inspired versus Desamis. With jungle, it's not quite that simple, obviously.
Yeah.
But Quad, if there is a weak link on FlyQuest, it is Quad. He's been playing better over as the split has gone on. The start of the split was not as kind to him, so I still think that's an avenue you can attack. But I think Inspired is going to do a very good job of shielding whatever deficiencies you have. Right, I feel like you could almost leave Gakos on an island, be like, look, it's just a bowl. How bad could it possibly be? And then you just kind of shield mid lane as Miru tries to just, smack his head into quad over and over and over again. I think that is where it could fall apart. I still say my initial prediction was 3-1 FlyQuest. I still think 3-1, maybe 3-2 now with no Bwipo. But this is no disrespect to Cade. It's FlyQuest, dude. And like, in all, even like the promo material, right? Like a lot of the Brazilian players went on like in front of the camera on the official promo material and said, look, FlyQuest is probably the best team in the West. Right. And even, and this is not, this isn't like this is not any sort of crazy information. Even Cade, they've gone on record and on pros and said, like, look, like, it's not like we're just happy to be here, but we know the challenge we have in front of us. Right. We know that FlyQuest are probably the best team in the West. We know that Inspired is probably the best player in the West, and that this team is a fucking wagon. This is not going to be easy, right? We know that we have a real tough job in front of us.
AC, do you think it's FlyQuest, or do you think
I don't think it's FlyQuest.
No.
I cannot for the life of me think it's FlyQuest. I mean,
I don't want to think it's FlyQuest, man.
In international stages, post MSI, we saw FlyQuest struggle against other Western teams, and it was weird. And we're talking about, okay, so the main issue here, I wouldn't say Bwipo being out of the picture would be the main issue. I feel like it's a replacement of Bwipo that's really going to hamper the performance from FlyQuest, because we're talking about the youngest player in this tournament in the top lane. Gakos is 17 years old. Okay. He is as green as they get. He will crumble under pressure unless FlyQuest have trained the man to be on the level of a Bwipo who's been competing for the last decade or so. Okay, there is a massive trust issue. I would say Inspire would have some trust issues with this new top laner, but who knows? Who knows? I want to say that VKS have a better shot, especially because VKS have been looking really good. They've done a tremendous run through playoffs. They've 3-0'd everything that they could, and they're coming in here on fire. If they don't take this to game 5, even if they lose, it'll be criminal. But I do feel like they have a good shot at taking this the series home. And if they do, I feel like it's going to be a 3-1.
Yeah.
I know you don't like it. I know you don't.
What do you think, Trajan? We haven't asked you for directly opinions here.
That's why I normally host this, so I don't have to give opinions. If I choose not to, I can just.
I just throw the grenades in your direction.
I want to be hopeful for VKS so hard, but I think it's just because it's been long enough since the longer it goes, the more I just think, did that really happen? Did they actually look that good? Was that real? Like,
they did.
Are they not fine?
I cannot shake the feeling that I'm waiting for the shoe to drop with Cade.
Yeah.
And I wish it wasn't like that, but there's something in the back of my mind that's like, surely not.
Dude, it switched.
It'll be in
so
Worlds.
Quick.
They'll drop the shoe in Worlds. Don't worry about it. They'll drop the shoe in Worlds.
A lot of shoes are going to go on a lot of body parts at Worlds. I think
let's drop the shoe at Fly and then get it back on for Worlds. Maybe we'll reclaim it for Worlds would be good. There's like such decent arguments for why it should be playable, and it just feels like this is so winnable, it's playable, it's doable, it's so possible, guys. But like G2, the Furia win over G2 was also winnable and playable and possible, and I don't know if VKS are past where Furia was in Split 2. Obviously Furia exploded in Split 3, but from where Furia ended the split on and how they were playing, does VKS have more sauce to like Game 5 X Factor past FlyQuest?
They've been adapting well enough into the present meta. That's all I'm saying.
I'll put this question a different way, and AC, feel free to jump in. One, what is your prediction to Trajan specifically? Because AC, you gave yours.
Yeah.
What is your prediction? And then maybe separately, if Cade win, how does it happen?
I've been doing this a lot, actually. I'm doing this in multiple tournaments. I've actually been done pretty well for predictions this split across the UK League and LTA South.
You've had a couple of called shots here that I raised my eyebrows at, but you come out the better.
I think it's gonna be 3-2 FlyQuest. And I get the feeling that both... I have a similar prediction for the UK League that happens this weekend, is that the overwhelming overdog is going to almost lose and then win anyway, and everyone's going to be sad.
I could see it being, because haven't we seen this from Brazilian teams a lot, is Brazil team goes up 2-1 and then chokes out games 4 and game 5. We've seen that so much, going back to the loud GAM days in 2023 and 2022.
Oh, God, dude. I think it's 3-2 FlyQuest, and I think that it's gonna be like Game 5 inspired Nuno or some shit, and he's gonna absolutely gap the game, and it's gonna be like, well, he's just inspired in it. It's just, this is what the man does. So that's what I think is gonna happen. That AC.
I think it's 3-1 Vivo. If I say 3-1 Vivo Kid, I'm gonna say it's gonna be because they're gonna teach Bull how to play Yorick, because you already know how to play Jax. And you'll get him on extremely big split pushers. You're going to gain a lot of top priority. You're going to get 3 grubs. You're going to get the Herald. You're going to open up a massive, massive abyss in the top lane, which is going to translate leads, whether you want it or not, to the rest of the lanes. And that Jax is going to destroy. The potential Yorick is going to destroy. And the fact that he sometimes also plays Gwen could bode in favor of Vivo Kid. Even though, Vivo Kid are not top lane oriented to carry. Absolutely not. But with the good lane swaps, I feel like they could make some magic happen here against FlyQuest, because they're a very explosive team and they explode really, really fast. And when you realize it's like, wait, what happened to the game? It's so out of control. How do we get here? Right?
Yeah, they can get 2-1 up, and then we'll get Gatgos Gnar, and then Bola's gonna pick Aurelia as like a Lamau, we've got a game to spare, and it's just going to work, and then they're just going to win. And it's going to be like, oh, the Aurelia
upper
worked.
Bracket. Maybe we can't beat these guys, but we can beat,
but like, let's give the Aurelia a shot. Let's see if we can redeem the ball already, and it's just going to work. Just kind of out of nowhere, and then they 3-1 win. And then they will go back in the grand finals and then lose like 3-0 or something. So
if Bull Aurelia wins a game against FlyQuest, I don't even care that it's against Gatgos. If that happens,
either, yeah, like that's
nothing else. I don't even have to watch Worlds.
I don't care, because that's it. Bad, bro. Everyone agrees.
That's like sucks. The final, like that's like solving the Brazilian Wordle, right? You finally is it FNB Gwen? No. Is it Robo on Rise? No. Oh, it's been Bull Aurelia the whole time.
It's Bull Aurelia.
We have completed Brazil. 100% achievement unlocked.
100%.
Imagine that.
Yeah. Okay, so it super feels possible, especially with the FlyQuest roster that's going in here, and with VKS, if we can, all we need to do is I just need to go and watch the finals again and go, man, these guys are cracked as hell. These guys are so sick, and then I'll be back on board, I think. I just need to rewatch the finals. Okay, and then the last then there is 100 Thieves and Red. We've already spoken about this a decent amount, but what are we actually predicting here? What are we thinking is going to be the result?
If I could go first, I actually feel like 100 Thieves could win this one, or will win this one. And I feel like it might be I want to say 3-1 for 100 Thieves. Well, I don't know why 484 is the guy to face where he's like, I'm gonna be a contrarian to whatever AC is saying, but I think that Red Cannons are gonna win.
I think it's just definitely contrary to the mainstream narrative that the FlyQuest game is the winnable one and 100 Thieves one isn't.
Listen, Red Cannons have proven time and time again that they choke when it matters the most. Okay,
and I don't feel like. You've got valid points,
and I don't feel like their performance against Shopify was solid enough to warrant a certain feeling of ease coming into the series against 100 Thieves, because 100 Thieves look a lot better than what Red Cannons did. If you put the individual series on a bubble and you mash them together afterwards, I feel like 100 Thieves did a lot better than what Red Cannons showed up. But the thing is, we all know, all three of us know that Red Cannons can do better. They've shown that they can do better, but they tend to choke a lot when it matters.
Yeah.
Go on, Forey. Tell me why I'm wrong.
Look, no. Look, I think it'll just depend on which 100 Thieves show up, and I think, I don't know, man. Look, they're flying right now, and they're feeling really good after dispatching Pain. 3-0. I think both, but I think Red will come out and tell you, like, look, we can play better. We have played better. I think 100 Thieves will win, but I think it will be 3-2. I think it'll be very close. Red will have their moments. I trust Red's champion pool a bit more than I trust 100 Thieves'. But at the end of the day, I think if River and Quid are playing like their normal selves, and if we give Quid Yone even once, if we give Quid Yone even once, wrap it up and fire Talkers. I'm being so serious because that is malpractice. I don't care how much cachet you have built up. Do not give this man Yone. It's a free loss. You're playing catch up. He's too good on that champion. I don't care if Kaze is a prodigy. I don't care. Don't give Quid Yone. He's too goddamn good at that champion. Please don't do that.
To forcibly stop Talkers from doing his give them all of their favorite picks in game 1 strategy. And just be like, look, put that on hold. It didn't work against VKS. You still lost game 1 against Shopify. Who's to say whether it worked in Shopify better? Because they also gave them Yone and Aurora and Pantheon and Nico. Like they gave them kind of a god comp in game 1 and then lost. So like, who's to say if tossing the first game on giving away a power draft is actually a good idea? It really depends for me on how Kaze looks, because he's gonna get forced off the Kaze comfort at some point. He's gonna have to go toe to toe with Quid on control mages like Orianna and Taliyah, and I really didn't like his
look good on the Orianna.
I really didn't like his Taliyah against Miryu, but I loved his Taliyah against Palafox. So I think it may be just like, again, if Kaze is against the worst mid laner, he cooks. It doesn't matter. And if he's against the better mid laner, it kind of looks like he doesn't. And that's kind of the same for most players. But like, he doesn't seem like he's able to like play to manage a greater threat super well, because he tends to be the apex predator in whatever game he's in. And then that maybe comes back to like, what's Quid gonna do? Oh, is Quid gonna be playing to try and 1v1 him? Is he gonna be playing to just like chill out and play Ryze and Taliyah himself and just do nothing? But I don't know. I'm too worried, I think, that when the mid jungle for Red is outclassed, they really struggle to like play the game out cleanly. And then I don't know if FNB's advantage is enough to outweigh that. So I think it's probably 3-2 Thunder and 100 Thieves as well. I do have LTA North in both of these matches, but it could easily be a 3-100 Thieves. It could be a 3-0 100 Thieves. Like, this could just be like, nope, 100 Thieves are just too good, and Red just aren't able to overcome a better team right now. They can't like clutch up and out magic a better team. They're just actually the second best team in South and just beat everyone who's worse than them. So that's my feeling on that. So I think,
and as a reminder, I mean, this is the most important series. I mean, maybe it's a bit of hyperbole, but this feels like the most important series in Brazilian League of Legends history, because this is the most winnable series with like the most legitimate consequences. If Red win this, South America gets more spots at Worlds than North America.
That is a tide-turning moment that is just so juicy. I want it so bad.
Like,
imagine.
Like, think about that for a second. Right? Then all of a sudden, all the yapping about like, why are we even playing these jokers for a seed? And then we just beat you.
That's why I think FLY-VKS are gonna win.
Yeah, but to be fair,
but it doesn't matter. And look, if Cade win, that's great. But the second seed comes down to 100 Red. Because
that's the thing, is
and that's what unfortunately the history books will remember.
Shaping the narrative that even if VKS wins the entire LTA championship, will that outweigh the fact that the 100 Thieves still gets the second spot? Maybe.
It'll come close.
Because
that means they will have defeated FlyQuest with Whippo, because he, as of now, will be back for that second series.
Everyone has agreed that FlyQuest is the best team in the North and possibly the best team in the West, depending on how G2 are feeling at any given moment. Like, that would be so sick to just put that narrative to bed of, why are we doing this? Why are we even letting them come and play here? Why are they taking our slot and bothering to play us for our obvious second slot when they should only have one? It would be so funny. I just really want it to happen. And like, it will also sadly contribute even more to the general depression of the LTA North, which I don't want to happen, but also they started it and they were mean to us first. So
Sure.
we're gonna take the spot. We're gonna take your one spot because you were mean on Twitter, so we're going to take it. Yeah. Okay. Let's take a quick look at Lunar Days questions, which I realize now I did not actually take a screenshot of. But but the first one, so I can just read them out. It's not going to come up on screen. So the first one is it's mostly just like Lunar Days comment box. As seeing as though the name no longer fits, I guess it's time to retire failed nationally in Brazil and go with something a little more fitting. I'm taking suggestions, but leaning towards feasted on NA bums. So, I like feasted on NA bums.
I don't hate that.
And we have to give respect to Lunar Day for retiring failed nationally in Brazil, which she was pushing very hard for.
Not keeping the bit going.
No, yep. She gave the bit up when it became incorrect, and I respect that. We have to add it to her.
Yep.
And he did feast on the bums. He did. So there's only one bum left. Well, I guess there's two counting Bwippa, but neither of them are NA, so they're both European. So it's the next one is from Dark Knight. Is that red win was expected if you really think about it. There is no way they would lose to a team made of cowards that ran away from the CBLOL, which is certainly harsh words for our beautiful baby boy Seos.
For one of the few supports to win MVP as a support,
ran away.
Why are we doing this to Seos? Is my question.
Oh man, dude. Look, he got offered a bag on a good team.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Man, if I'm offered like 5 times the wage I already made on my homeland, I'd take it.
Yeah,
absolutely, man.
And this is
I'd go, man, I love you guys, and I don't mind ending a couple of games to maybe give you a little something, to just to make sure that we're still friends.
Yeah.
But I'm taking the bag.
Yeah. Look,
it's not running, it's upgrading.
And it was the way that it was certainly pitched was like Seos is representing the CBLOL in LTA North and has by all accounts done really well. He's represented us super well because I was like, this guy's good, especially with
twice.
Yeah, and especially with B-Voy, they're like, no, this guy's actually legit. He's not outclassed by NA supports. The bot lane looks really solid, and B-Voy has hardcore carried a lot of clutch Shopify Rebellion games, ultimately did not win the series for them and looked really bad in game 5 against Red, but that's because he's against the true product. He was against the original source, which is a Brazilian cracked AD carry fresh out of CD. So but like they have represented us really well, and I think that is still the narrative, and we could see it in how like sort of low-key chuffed Seos was that Red did so well on that day. So
to be fair to Seos as well, he only had to show up to one NA support, which was Busio. Every other support was not original from NA on this split of LTA North.
That's grim, man. That's not good.
I just wanted to add that little bit of spice in there, Unless you count Vulcan, the Canadian, as North American.
I guess he's North American. The region is not USA. The region is not USA.
Fair enough.
Vulcan has never been USA.
Fair enough. Vulcan is North American. Then it was Vulcan and Busio.
Seos did, and Shopify did give Cloud9 the business. So, and this kind of follows into.
If you want to talk about people running away to go to a less financially suitable region, there's a certain Canadian who has done well in Europe. But there's a certain Canadian that could not handle the spotlight of Cloud9 and went to an org that just got booted from EMEA Valorant.
Yeah, and does look incredibly like one day he's Cloud9 championship split and one day he is Cloud9 implosion split, and like he is completely hot and cold on this MKI roster. So the follow into the last one from Luna Day, which is, can we finally confirm that B-Voy was the problem but not the only problem for Pain? Now, I remember at the time RMC was always a big B-Voy defender and like was pushing for him to be considered among like closer even among the top 80 carries. This is when Titan was still on Red and Red were much more sus, and it was Pain versus Loud. It was like root B-Voy kind of discussion with Titan also in the mix, and B-Voy was always just not that. He actually didn't seem to. I don't think he was nearly as highlight prone back then, but he was like really reliable 2v2, and like he's kind of like Rebello, to be honest, is right now. It's like really reliable 2v2 and can team fight super well if you build around him. So I think it's probably still not reasonable to say B-Voy was the problem, because I think if you look back at those finals, there's probably a certain jungler who's being more of a problem for Pain a lot of the time. Possibly even a mid laner who is being more of the problem in those Loud finals.
Oh my.
And I think B-Voy was just along for the ride, personally. So I agree that he was not the only problem, and I would still contend he probably wasn't the problem for Pain, but...
Yeah, I mean, there's a correlation causation thing where when they do sub out B-Voy for Titan,
they do win.
And Curry,
like,
to be fair. Yeah. So I mean, the bot lane as a whole, right? Curry was a part of that, but like, but I think you could say a lot. I do think RMC was right that like you could say a lot of things about B-Voy, but unreliable was not one of them. Like you said, he was never bad, right? I mean, it's a bit of an oversimplification, but he had a bit of the recklessness about him, right? Like great kind of solid regular season top 280 carry, but in the most important late game position in the game, right? He can't kind of take over a game like Titan has in the past, where he is the one kind of riding that, that knife's edge to get your team a victory. Look, B-Voy, he set a North American record on Ezreal. That is tough to do. Right, like he's acquitted. He, like Seos, has acquitted himself very well in the North, even when it was the tragic 2024 version of Shopify with the greatest of respect to fake god Tomio and Zazel. B-Voy was the only good part of that roster, and then they built around him and brought in the old NRG core and all that, right? So like, but that bottom lane has been fine. Seos has been it's been very consistent. I think both those guys deserve more credit than they ran into the Monstars. That Loud team, that Loud dynasty wasn't losing to anybody.
Yeah, and like B-Voy made, I think, 3rd team All-Pro from 7th in the standings. Out of 8?
7th or 8th. Yeah,
7th or 8th, and only person I've ever seen do that before is Alfari in EU when he was, I think, 7th or 9th out of 10th. And was 3rd or 2nd team All-Pro.
But he was so clearly head and shoulders the only one that was doing anything on that team.
The fact that B-Voy also achieved the same feat, I think, sends a pretty clear message that this guy's good.
Wow.
And I think he's...
We got an Alfari mention on Gringos Liberados before GTA 6.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Okay. I think that about wraps it up for us, fellas. We're going to keep this at a cool gentleman's just over an hour, not the 2.5 hour monstrosity that we wrought last week, trying to do a tier list episode and an all episode at the same time, like fools. So we'll keep it nice and clipped, and then next week we can come and talk about the inevitable victory of Cade and Red stealing the 2nd slot, and we can talk about LTA North Twitter being on fire and all this stuff. It's going to be good. It's going to be great.
I want it so bad, dude.
We're going to manifest it. We're going to manifest it. So, thank you, everybody.
I did what I could.
Yes, you did. Yeah, you instigated admirably. And we're manifesting so hard that we can hopefully have it happen. Thank you, everybody, for watching / listening. You can follow us on Twitter and Blue Sky and Twitch at LTA South. We're not going to be streaming it because there's already a stream, but you can check it out on LTA North, is where the official games will be played on Saturday and Sunday at the same time as last week. VKS Fly First, and then 100 Thieves and Red. So we hope to see you all out there supporting in the chat and generally just watching our region completely dominate, as we are going to do forever now. So thank you. Have a good rest of your day, your night, your whatever, and we'll see you back here next week.